Hi everyone, my name's Dr. Matt Williams. I'm a tutor in politics and what is known as the Access Fellow here at Jesus College at the University of Oxford. Now, are you by any chance sitting on the fence of applying to a competitive university like Oxford? And if so, may I be the one to gently but resolutely shove you off the fence? Because let's talk about what are the advantages to you of applying to a university like Oxford. What's the point? That's a very important question to consider. Now, I think we need to make sure that we're clear. First of all, I did say, what's the advantage of applying to a university like Oxford? There are some advantages to getting in, and I'll get to that later, but I think we should really dwell on the advantages to applying. It's an enormous challenge. It's something that you will take huge amounts from. Most people that apply to universities like Oxford and Cambridge aren't admitted, but that doesn't mean that I would recommend that they don't bother applying, right? Because, if you took that attitude, you might as well not try anything in life, but the stretch and the challenge is really important. As it happens, I applied to Cambridge when I was 17 and I didn't get in. I went to Bristol University, and just the sheer act of applying was hugely beneficial to me. So what's the advantage in applying? Because you'll grow an enormous amount. So then what are the advantages of getting in? They're actually pretty marginal, and it really depends on the individual. So if you throw your heart and soul into your studies, it doesn't really matter which university you are at, you will get a great education. Certainly of the UK universities I've been involved with. So I've studied at Bristol, taught at Reading University, and I've studied and taught here at Oxford. And honestly, hand on heart, they are all such good institutions, but crucially, the people that make the most of those institutions do the best. It's fairly obvious. If you come to a place like Oxford and you just don't apply yourself, then you're not going to take away much and you're kind of wasting the opportunity. So it really depends on you rather than the institution. And I think a lot of people get really fixated on where they want to study, and they kind of forget that the biggest part of the equation as to what they get out of their education is themselves. There are some marginal advantages to a university like Oxford. It does have extraordinary resources. So Oxford and Cambridge combined have the same net wealth as the other 160 or so universities in the UK put together, which is just a function of their age. They're very old institutions. They've been around for nearly 1,000 years, and they've squirreled away some money, and so they can help fund students from poorer backgrounds. They have very generous bursaries and scholarships. They subsidise parts of the accommodation. They subsidise the food. So that is hugely helpful to many, many people. They also just have incredible library systems, which many other universities can't match. So, there are those advantages. But again, it comes back to that point I was making, that it depends on how much you're going to throw yourself into that as to what you would take out of it. Related to the resourcing point is that the staff to student ratio is extraordinary at Oxford and Cambridge. So my class sizes for politics can be no larger than 3 students. Those are called tutorials. We do have lectures and seminars, and we have fieldwork sessions and laboratory sessions, which would be just like at any university. But it's all anchored to these tiny tutorials, and they are just exceptionally good at getting the best out of students. So that is a really unusual feature. That, if you like, is the unique feature of an Oxford or Cambridge education, is the small group teaching. And then finally is the collegiate structure. So this is one of 39 colleges at Oxford. So the university is 25,000 odd people, but split into small communities like this. It just means you get the benefits of small and large scale all at once. There are other universities in the UK that are collegiate, like Durham and Lancaster University. So it's not unique by any stretch, but it is a really nice feature. But I think, as I said, the key advantage, if you're sort of wavering and sitting on the fence, is just to apply. The best you can get out of the process, at least immediately, is just the application and seeing how far you can go. It's a bit like, committing to a marathon, or, applying for something like special forces. You just see if you can do it, because why not? But the stakes are so low, right? You're not going to lose anything. There's no risk to it. So give it a try. It really doesn't matter if you don't get in, I would say, and you will benefit hugely from the process of just applying, I would argue. Okay. Relatedly, quite a common question I get is, don't I have to be the best? Don't I have to be the best? The smartest? I've got to have the highest IQ. I've got to never put a foot wrong academically my entire life? No, absolutely not. If that was true, I certainly wouldn't be teaching here. So definitely not. We are looking for people who have met academic eligibility criteria. They're all listed on the website. They are focused mostly on A-levels rather than GCSEs. We do admit people with a range of different GCSE profiles, and we're not looking for perfection in grades, because perfection in grades is not necessarily an indicator of someone who's got great potential. So we take lots of other data, and in particular we take data on admissions tests and interviews. And admissions tests and interviews have a bit more of a focus on another X factor that we quite like at Oxford, which is the capacity to answer the magic 4-word question, what do you think? What do you think? So we're not just looking for people who can draw on a huge range of facts, who are know-it-alls. We're kind of looking for think-it-alls, people who can think through puzzles and conundrums and come up with unusual, personal answers. And this would be as true of interpreting an English literature poem as it would be a mathematical proof. So if you're wondering whether you could apply to a place like this, if you like to share your thoughts, if you have ideas that you want to contribute, then that's great. And if you're not terribly confident, if you're maybe quite quiet in classes, you might be neurodiverse, that doesn't matter at all. Many students would fall under those categories at Oxford, and we welcome them and we encourage them. We're not looking for people who are outgoing and brazen and loud or anything like that. We're just looking for people who care about their subjects and are willing to contribute. And so if that's you, then you should think about it. Now, another thing that people rightly ask about is whether or not it's a scary place, whether it's full of very unfriendly people, people who are extremely privileged and out of touch and so on. It's really not the case. It's a large university, about 26,000 people here. And it's split into these colleges. There's people from about 170 countries and territories. It's very diverse in its intake from the UK. So there really isn't an Oxford type. So don't go into it sort of saying, I won't apply because I won't fit in or I won't find it friendly there. It's really not a place where you're expected to fit in. We're looking for creative, innovative thinkers who represent the diversity of the university. So there's no fitting in to be done. We want you to break molds, not fit into them. I think my most sort of salient point, the most important thing to say is that you should go into this just with a light-heartedness, a lightness of touch. Most people who apply to Oxford and similar universities don't get in. I didn't get into Cambridge. But the idea that that's some sort of magnificent shame, a mark of Cain that you ought to carry around for the rest of your life is just not true. It's a really sort of uplifting experience to apply to a university like Oxford and just to see what might happen and to test yourself, to push yourself and give it a go. But give it a go in that sort of sense of it really doesn't matter what happens. The consequences are naught and you can have some fun with it. That would be my advice. Have some fun with it. See what might happen. And if you are still on the fence, then let me know in the comments if I can convince you otherwise. All right. Thanks so much for watching. All the best. Bye.